So, holiday season is here. Is anybody else panicking about the things that they were planning to make for people? Hey there, welcome to the Sweet Georgia channel. I am Felicia from Sweet Georgia Yarns and the School of Sweet Georgia. And today I want to talk about the things that you might be able to knit just in time for the holidays if you are still looking for things that you might want to make as gifts for other people. Now, one thing I do want to say about gift knitting, I don't want it to be stressful for you. I don't want it to be stressful for anyone. I know that I get myself into a little bit of a tizzy every year about trying to make things for people before the holidays. There is a bit of pressure on all of that. There's time pressure on all of that. And so that can be less fun than you want out of your crafting. I'm going to show you here. This is my daughter's knitting bag here. This is all of her knitting stuff that she has going on right now. She learned to knit maybe last year, the year before. She's been like knitting a stitch or here or there for a while now, but this is the year that she's actually started to knit things on her own. And so one of the things that she recently wanted to do, one of the first things she wanted to do was she wanted to knit French fries. So we went through my stash and we found some French fry colored yarn in my stash. And so she pulled out some of this. This is superwash worsted. And so she started knitting these French fries. So I'd cast on 22 stitches and then she would knit across 3 or 4 rows. And then I would help her bind off. And then she would make these little strips, which look like flat French fries, flat cut French fries. And then her idea was then she was going to take this yarn and then she was going to make herself like a container. She was going to knit herself a container and then put all of her French fries in this container. So this is her first idea of what she wanted to make. And then as she was knitting these French fries, somebody's birthday came up and she was immediately like, I want to make a knitted coaster to give as a birthday gift. But she didn't really have that much time. And so she really tried, really working hard on this. You know, she started knitting all of this. She's knit this far. She's probably about a third of the way there. But she didn't give herself that much time to work on this. So maybe like an evening or two to make this coaster. And so she started to get really frustrated and really like upset and very sad because she wanted to make this thing, to give this thing to somebody, but she didn't have enough time and she was worried she wasn't going to finish. And it was just all this stress on a little kid who's 8 years old and just has the heart to make something for somebody, but then putting a lot of pressure on themselves to do that. And I just observed all of this and just felt so bad. Like I wanted to be able to help her, but I'm not going to knit it for her because I would take away all of her pride and satisfaction of actually making something. But I wanted her to make something, but to take away that stress. And so I was trying to remind her that, you know, whoever is going to receive the thing that you make, they want to know that you made it with a good feeling while you were making it. They want to know that you were happy while you were making it. They don't want to know that you were frustrated or angry or sad or rushed or stressed. They don't want you to feel those things while you make this gift for them. They want to know that you enjoyed yourself and loved it and loved making this thing for this other person. And so I tried to remind her about that. And so we'll just kind of work on this and chip away at it slowly, and kind of like the person who's going to receive this will receive this when they receive it. And it will all be good. And I think that it's really lovely that Nina wanted to make something and give away pretty much her first piece of knitting. She wants to give it away to somebody that she cares about. So all of that is really, really sweet. But I think it was a reminder for me watching her go through this process, reminder that the person who receives the thing that you made for them would love to know that you enjoyed making it and that it was a joyful experience and that you didn't put yourself under crazy stress or pressure in order to create something, because then it's almost not worth the experience, right? So, in any case, if you are planning to make things for somebody for the holidays, there's still time. I have been trying to make smaller things lately just because I would like to see more things finished. I really love the feeling of knitting in my hands, but having a massive project that takes months and months to finish has just not been as joyful, I think, as making smaller things. And so one of the things that I really enjoyed making lately is I've made a whole bunch of hats. So this one is the WPI hat, or the wraps per inch hat. This is designed by Rachel Smith, Welford Pearls, and she teaches this class inside the School of Sweet Georgia. And so this one happened to be made with my hand spun. And so I used 2 strands. You can see here, I held together 2 strands of yarn to make this yarn that is all mixed up. It was like a fractal spun to begin with, and then I held 2 strands of it together to make this hat, and it's probably about worsted weight, and I made it for my size. I think I made it a little bit longer than it needs to be, but I like a slouchier hat, and so I think it's a little bit longer than I need it to be, but I like it to be a little bit slouchier, and so I'm kind of like tugging down on the back of it here. And I think that works pretty well. I think that this has been the easiest and one of the most fun hats to make in a long time, just because the way that the pattern is written, there's all the different gauges in there, there's all of the different needle sizes. Depending on what your handspun yarn is like, you can just measure how many wraps per inch that yarn might be, and then you can figure out what size needle you should start with, how many stitches you should cast on for what size hat you want to make. So even if you're not using handspun, even if you're using just like a regular ball of knitting yarn, whatever yarn that might be, all you need to do is measure the wraps per inch. Basically wrap your yarn around a ruler for 1 inch and then see how many strands fit in a 1 inch space. And then using that information, you can figure out the rest of the hat. So that is this hat, the WPI hat. This one turned out great. The other hat that I have been sort of compulsively making over and over again is the Flicker and Flame hat. So this one is a hat pattern that is designed by Andrea Mowry, and she has written this also in 2 different sizes. So one of them uses sport weight yarn and the other one uses worsted weight yarn. So I had a whole bunch of BFL and Silk DK weight yarn that was left over from other projects, so I just used a little bit of that. And then I used my own hand spun in here. And I used the numbers for the sport weight hat because, again, I wanted something that was a little bit more loose and maybe more slouchy. So this is one of the hats that I did make. And I wanted to add a pom-pom to it. This one is from Yarn Bowler. So these ones with the snap, I would just have to sew the little snap part onto the top of the hat. But that is basically what that would look like. It's kind of cute. Pretty good color. That works well. And then in terms of fit, it fits pretty well, but I think having a pom-pom on here will kind of like pull down, add a little bit of weight and pull this down a little bit. Again, I like that sort of slouchy sort of style. So this handspun was the Celestial colorway that I used, and then I knit a second version. Again, same pattern. This is the Flicker and Flame pattern, but this is again BFL and Silk DK for the main color, and then for the handspun portion, this one I think was Gemstones, and so it is much more subtle contrast. You can see a huge difference in the contrast to these colors, but this one I think that the handspun yarn was a little bit finer than I had expected, and so I think that overall this hat is a little bit smaller. But I feel like this hat doesn't slouch down as much because there's not as much room. For this one, I'm going to try adding this pom-pom. This is one of the tie-on pom-poms, so you just kind of take it out of the button here. And I'm going to stick the 2 ribbons into the top of the hat. And then I can take these 2 ribbon ends and then feed them back into the button. Right. So there is my hat with the pom-pom. That pom-pom is really big. Okay, so that's the first one I made, that's the second one I made, and now I'm making a third one. So again, I had leftover BFL Silk DK, and then I had leftover hand spun yarn. This is the same hand spun yarn that I used in this hat, but since I still had some, I'm just kind of continuing on with all of that and trying to make one that has a slightly larger gauge. I used a 3.75 millimeter needle for the entirety of this hat, and so I wanted something a little bit looser, a little bit more slouchy, and so I decided to go up to a 4.5 millimeter needle. That's a US 7 needle, and so I'm doing that at a slightly bigger gauge on this one, and we'll see if this feels any different once it's been washed. But otherwise, the Flicker and Flame hat is great to knit because I feel like I was able to very quickly memorize the chart. The chart is actually really easy to memorize because you can sort of knit to a certain portion and then there's repeats. And so you just look at what you've done before and there's a little bit of a pattern and you just follow the pattern. And so it's quite easy to sort of remember what's going on. So I am looking forward to seeing how this hat turns out. I hope I don't run out of hand spun yarn because then I will have to spin some more. But yeah, these hats turn out really, really quick. So yeah, if you are about to panic about the things that you might make for somebody this holiday season, I can recommend hats are really easy. These are really pretty quick to knit. You know, just a couple of nights and you'd be able to finish a hat. There's not a lot of crazy shaping involved. For the most part, you were just knitting straight and then you just do some shaping at the very crown. And so hats are really one easy way to go. Or you could knit yourself a bunch of French fries or a little coaster. So I'm definitely looking through my stash to find more hand spun and find more yarn to maybe make just a couple of more hats like this. I think that these are really, really handy to have. But yeah, you can see how I made it significantly longer than the previous hat. Quite a bit longer. So that is basically it for today. I would love to hear how you approach the holidays and knitting for the holidays and knitting for other people during the holidays. In any case, please do hit the like button if you like this video, and please hit subscribe if you would like to see more videos about knitting or hand knitting or machine knitting or crochet or any of the things that we can make with yarn here. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you in the next one. All right, bye for now.